Welcome to our journey to Iona. In all of its beauty and simplicity, its starkness, its surrounding. We're glad that you have joined us this day for our webinar to talk about our pilgrimage in August of 2015, Walking an Ancient Path, Journey to a Thin Place. We come now to share pilgrimage. Vivian Hall says, unlike mere travel, a pilgrimage is a journey into the landscape of the soul. So we pilgrimage together to Iona. To begin our conversation, I would ask you, what is the most significant pilgrimage you have taken in your life? Have you recognized and honored pilgrimage in your life? Do you take time for yourself? Do you regenerate? Do you find ways for renewal, for journey? The answer you hold in your thinking, but we uphold it in our time together today. The longest journey begins with a single step, and so we step out into pilgrimage time. So I invite you to consider these things. First, determine what is calling you. What is sacred? What is holy to you in your language and your world? I invite you to be intentional in your journey. You choose to take this journey. It's not happenstance. It's not just off the cuff. You have planned to go. I invite you to be open to the inner, the outer, and the deeper purpose that is there, which will be revealed as the journey begins and continues. Expect surprises. Anytime we travel these days, there are surprises. Anytime we give ourselves up to venture, there are surprises. And I invite you to follow synchronicity, to see what is happening and how you recognize it. What is compelling within you, and what are you encountering in the journey? And how does it speak to you? And then give yourself time for reflection. In the venture and the journey and the speaking, take time to reflect so that there is space once you have completed your pilgrimage to reflect and see what is next. There are many reasons that we are stirred or we choose to go on pilgrimage. On some occasions, it's to go to a place where something happened, something in our own lives, something in the history of the world, something that is significant in the story. For many persons, a pilgrimage to Iona is to reconnect with one's own roots and to see how you were shaped out of your history and your story. It might be to give thanks and to express gratitude for that which has happened in your own life, for the possibility of pilgrimage, for journey itself. It may be that out of wilderness, we are hoping to reclaim lost and abandoned parts of ourselves, to rediscover that which was there, but which we no longer feel or experience. And so we venture on journey. It may be to explore a soul calling. What is it at any age that you are called to pursue? You are called to give yourself to at a young, tender age, at a midlife point, at a point of wisdom time. What is your soul calling for now? Perhaps pilgrimage would enable you to look at that, to pursue. It might be to start a new chapter in our lives, to see a transitional time of moving from the past and what holds ahead in the future, what new ways of living. And it might be to prepare for death. Certainly, death is one of those ventures of our lives, one of those significant moments where we should prepare. And in the Celtic tradition and journey, there is a dear preparation for death and an honoring of the journey of death itself. Ponder and live with these reasons for pilgrimage. So, in this pilgrimage, in this time to Iona, we journey to a thin place. There are many places that we can go which are filled with senses and experience and images that call us to be energized and connected. A journey to a thin place is something quite different. Peter Gnomes says this: there's in Celtic mythology the notion of a thin place in the universe where the visible and the invisible world come into their closest proximity. To seek such places is the vocation of the wise and the good, and for those that find them, the clearest communication between the temporal and the eternal. Mountains and rivers are favored as thin places, marking as they do the frontiers that we face. But perhaps ultimate of these thin places in the human condition are the experiences people are likely to have as they themselves encounter suffering and joy and mystery. John O'Donohue articulated a Celtic imagination about how the material and the spiritual, the visible and the invisible worlds intertwine in human experience. And so Iona has been described as such a place, a thin place, a time of journeying throughout the centuries of searching and yearning and longing. Columba, a saint from Ireland who was full of energy and enthusiasm for his work and his life, who ran into problems and challenges and difficulties. At a certain point, climbed into a small boat, a coracle, and traveled across a short pattern of sea to an island where he could no longer see his beloved Ireland. And so he set foot on the south of Iona, and then he traveled up the side, and he came to a place, a cove, a landing, which was to shape his life and to shape the history of the Christian world. He said this: small and mean though this place is, yet it shall be held in great and unusual honor. Such is the place called Iona. A small island. You see a map in front of you now. It's a mile wide. It's 3 miles from the upper end to the bottom end. Just a mere blink in space and time. And yet filled with centuries of meaning and centuries of mystery and centuries of thin places. Columba landed in the southern end of Iona, there at the south, but he could still see Ireland, and his calling was to go until he could no longer see his beloved home country. And so he got back into this small coracle with his followers, his disciples, committed to this journey, and he sailed around the southeast corner and up, and he landed and said, this is it. I can no longer see Ireland. This is my place of being. And so he moved in his own pilgrimage journey to found a community there, to found a place of holy living there, to shape his future there and the future of the Christian world there. The image of the map of Iona will hold hopefully in your thoughts and your memory, because your question is how to get to Iona as a modern pilgrim. It's not by coracle, it's not by boat from Ireland, which you can see and set foot on the shore. Your journey will be by a plane, a train, 2 ferries, and a bus to get there. But the pilgrimage journey is still the same. We will say more about the logistics of how to get there later in this presentation. But for now, know that for you too, the approach itself is a part of the pilgrimage. The way to get there is a part of the journey, just as for Columba. You approach your journey on the Calmac ferry. There will be 2 ferries that you will travel to get there. One from Oban to Mull, and then across Mull on bus, and then from Mull, a short ride from Finnefort to the Isle of Iona. But the landing is still the same. You see the land, you see the small island, and you see what is there. It's a small village, a small community, and what we are looking at now is the abbey, which people are used to searching for and seeing. When Columba arrived, there was no abbey there, and so he built a community, he built a place, he built a monastery. Throughout the centuries, that has been changed and reshaped. A Benedictine monastery abbey was built there in the 1200s, and then the history itself, it was torn down. And in the 20th century, the 1900s, George MacLeod took upon himself to rebuild the abbey so that pilgrims of today's world could travel it, to see what is there. And so the image that you are looking at now holds the modern abbey, and it holds the way of the dead, the pathway upon which kings and great warriors traveled to be buried at Iona, and it leads right up to the abbey. Columba himself was thought to live on the top of this hill. There's still a small hole on the top of this small hill where perhaps his writing tablet stood. At night he slept on a stone pillar, and he overlooked what was there at that time, not this abbey, but what was there at that time. And so today, you can climb up on top of that hill, you can look out upon the abbey itself and look around to see the world and the land that Columba and those before him loved. The abbey today houses the Iona community, a small community which has regenerated the life of the church there, and which offers to the world today disciplines for living and places of worship, modes of worship. And so in our time at Iona, on our pilgrimage, we will have options for being present in the abbey, for learning about the Iona community, for understanding it, and for experiencing present-day worship there as a part of our journey. The crosses, the high crosses of Iona. Ireland and Iona and Brittany are known for their high Celtic crosses, which mark the way of pilgrimage and journey. And so you see some of the ones that are still present on the Isle of Iona. The one in the middle, St. Martin's Cross, is one of the original ones that was placed in earlier centuries and is still standing there, and you can gaze at it to see how the worshipers and believers saw the story in metaphor and image and imagination. The one on the right is St. John's. It is a replacement of one that was built much earlier, and you can see that the sides of it are much wider and stronger, and therefore it did not last a long time. This is a replica, but the high cross stands there, and behind the high cross you see the chapel of Columba, which is there, which perhaps his relics were placed there. The earliest living instance of building that is present. And then on the left you see St. Martin's Chapel. It marks the way up to the abbey. As pilgrims walked along the way, they stopped along the high crosses to pray and then continued on their journey. And so we too can pause in these places and continue on our journey. And now we come to one of my favorite places. When you arrive at Iona, you land at the jetty, the landing, a small village that one street wide and a little perpendicular street up. And when you land and you walk onto the shore, there are not cars except for residents on the Isle of Iona. You walk up the road and you come to the nunnery. The nunnery is the place where the women who lived on Iona lived in community and served, and it's, again, one of my favorite places to sit, to meditate. You see, it's not been rebuilt, and I love that, because at the nunnery, you're open to the sky. You're open to the possibility of spirit being with you, of centuries of spirituality present with you, and of the sacred feminine being there to be present, to support the work that was going on, to find their own journeys, to welcome pilgrims of their own. And so, again, it's a beautiful, beautiful spot. You see the things that are there, the stones that are so colorful and magnificent, and the wildflowers and the blossoms that bloom there. It becomes a sacred place, a familiar place, a favorite place for many who travel to Iona. And so we too, in our pilgrimage last year, we gathered there. We spent time reflecting. We spent time hearing stories of the women's lives that we could do. We hear stories of the island itself, and we danced. We danced to Pilgrim's dance, taught to us by one of our pilgrims, a traditional dance that's done in pilgrimage. And we connected with others who, throughout the centuries, have stood in this place, in this space, this beautiful place. We sang, we chanted, we shared, we danced. And often individuals went back to sit and meditate and write in their journals, a very sacred and special place on this trip. And so now we're going to move out into the island so that you can see what is there. A part of the beauty of being on Iona is to take time to explore and experience this little small space of 1 mile and by 3 miles. So from the abbey, from the nunnery, we follow the roads and the paths that cross through farms and cross over the hill, and we come to the other shore, where we come to the Macaire. It is both a sheep pasture and a golf course. And there's no need for greenskeepers on the golf course because the sheep keep the grass mowed for us. So you see here a parent and a child watching out over the sands of the Macaire, looking out to the eastern shore, awaiting our time, letting us walk by, welcoming us to their space, their time. Iona is a place of walking, and so you have to be ready to adventure out, to experience it. Along the way, you see wildflowers, you see the farms, you hear the sheep, the lambs calling for their moms, the moms replying. You cross over that short 1 mile, and you come to the bay at the back of the ocean. Beautiful bay where you can sit and watch the sun set. You can walk and look for stones. You can sit and meditate. Iona is a place where you can see the sun rise on the east and the moon set in the west, all in one day, in a simple 1 mile distance. The bay at the back of the ocean, the sheep are there with you. They welcome you. They watch you. They watch out for you. So perhaps sheet are welcoming, folks. Or you will see that there are people along the shore who are looking for their own rocks to pick up, their own shells to pick up. They're watching the waves come in and go back out. They're watching the spouting hole, which is there, as they take time on the bay at the back of the ocean to look and to choose and to pick the rock which speaks to them. It might be red, it might be green, it might be gray, it might have a face, it might be small like Columbus tear rocks of white, it might just fit in your pocket. But then you have choices of taking it with you or releasing and throwing it back into the ocean, or of building a simple cairn in honor of a memory or a moment or a thought, a person. And so many a day is spent moving to the bay at the back of the ocean. But for those of us who are on pilgrimage, we will choose one day to move from there to pilgrimage to the Labyrinth. It is a journey over hill and dale. It is a journey where pilgrims help each other and walk along the way, up the hill and dale, in paths with rocks, slowing down, moving on, until we come to the crest, and we start back down to the south of the island, to Columbus Bay, if you recall the map. Columbus Bay is where Columbus landed, and we are going there now to walk down that path to move to the Labyrinth. And we see it. It's there as we come down the hill. The last jaunt of the journey is a very, very steep down a cliff. Some can make it, some cannot, but all have traveled to view the labyrinth. This is not an ancient labyrinth. It's a labyrinth on ancient land, built with the stones gathered from the fields to create this wonderful classic labyrinth that sits there for us now, created in the early 21st century for pilgrims to walk now. And if you look carefully at the picture, you'll see who the guardian is, who the guardians are. This field was the sheep's field, the cow's field. And so you see there now single sheep in the outer circuit, resting, watching over, holding the space, anticipating humans to soon arrive. And we did. We arrived. We walked ashore. We took time as individuals to reflect on this pilgrimage journey for each of us. We had helped each other travel. We had wondered how it would feel, and now we arrived. And so we held the space, looked out over the rocks on the shore, looked for Columbus tears, the small white rocks that spoke of Columbus' sadness at losing his homeland, but now living in a new place. And we walked, and we shared sacred time, which transcended all spiritual traditions. And we shared lunch and bread, and we're grateful for the journey. And now, as in the labyrinth, we had come to the center. We had come to the labyrinth space in time. It was time to return. So we traveled back up the path to reconnect with our pilgrim friends who were not able to make it down the last cliff, but we shared bread and cup and music as we lingered one slight longer time and continued on our way back to the little village of Iona, grateful for the time, grateful for the journey. And as we arrived back, we settled into an evening of beauty. Evenings are beautiful on the Isle of Iona. You never know if it's going to be a cloudy day or a sunny day. This beautiful shot is from the Isle of Mull, looking out over Iona in a color-filled sunset evening. Sunset coming late in the day in the summer months, but just relishing the beauty of the time and reflecting on our journey, our day, our time together. As we are moving forward, we will look at the flow of the week for such a pilgrimage. I invite you to send in questions that are stirring as you listen to the presentation. We'll talk about some of the logistics toward the end, but I invite you to send your questions in to Anne, and we will take time to reflect upon them and to answer the questions that we can in our time together. So, What is a pilgrimage to Iona like? What will the flow of the week be? We'll be staying together in one place, the Argyle Hotel, which we'll highlight soon. We'll hold the mornings for meeting together, for learning sessions and conversation sessions about the Celtic experience, about understanding our need for thin places in our lives, of telling story and reflecting. We'll have reflection time in small groups each day, and then we break for beautiful lunches and sharing of meals. The afternoon has space for reflection time, for you to do what you want, for you to go out and paint or write or walk, for you to rest and sleep. It's a part of the rhythm of pilgrimage that you care for yourself and you take time to do what speaks to you. A whole group in pilgrimage doesn't always share the same desires for afternoon free time, and so you will have that time to return, to revisit, to rewalk, to write, to share, to talk. There will also be options in the afternoon. We'll be looking at a couple of them in just a minute, but there will be options for you to go on some expeditions, or for you not to, for you to claim your own space and time, or that with others, friends in the group. And we'll look at that in just a little bit. Then our meals will be served at the beautiful Iona. It's wonderful, natural, organic food. And so we come back around in the evenings for sharing around the table, for perhaps sharing and expressing what we've experienced during the day, for reflections and thoughts on what we have experienced and done, what we've written, what ideas have come to our mind. And we just share friendship. There are also opportunities throughout the week to connect with the Iona community, that ecumenical community which oversees the activities at the Abbey. There are daily worship services at the Abbey. There's a short morning prayer time. There's a 2 o'clock social justice prayer time. And there are 9 o'clock evening worship events based around particular themes: the theme of reconciliation and justice, the theme of healing, the theme of welcome, and the theme of sharing and communion gathered around the table. So for those persons who want to worship at the Abbey, and I'm sure Chris will say some more about that, but for persons who want to worship, we have planned our schedule so that you can do that. In our times, we will have devotional times, reflection times of spirit. We will incorporate singing and chant into what we are doing and into our pilgrimages and walking, and we will find the ways that each of us share and reflect. Beyond the ancient pilgrims who came, there are modern pilgrims, and again, the Labyrinth that is on the south shore, Columbus Bay, was built in the early 21st century, the early 2000s, placed there. It's a permanent labyrinth that people travel to. While we were there were bikers who went down those strong cliffs and went down to walk the labyrinth and to be present and come back up. But there are those pilgrims who want to build their own labyrinths. It might be a seaweed labyrinth on the Sound of Iona on the arrival side. It might be on the North Shore. And so one of the events that we will participate in is the building of a temporary North Shore labyrinth. What you are seeing now is such a labyrinth that was built last year by our Pilgrim group, created for the moment, created for the now, the North Shore Labyrinth. And here you see appearing the primary creator, Linda King from the UK, gathered the fronds and the pieces and directed the folks, the pilgrims there, in building this temporary labyrinth which matched the tides washing in and washing out, and offered the path out into the North Sea. Along with Linda were wonderful, energetic, exciting pilgrims who danced and laughed and helped create and loved the energy that was found right there on the North Shore as they created this Now in the day, Labyrinth time. And the labyrinth was made for us to walk. And so it was a beautiful time on the north shore, the north of the island, creating this wonderful classical labyrinth. And then knowing that the tides would come in and wash it back into the sea. Our afternoon experiences will include the creation of a labyrinth. And Chris Faranoble, who is working with logistics with us, will be helping create that labyrinth. Chris, I invite you right now, if you want to make any comments about that experience, to do so.
Well, of course, it just thrills me to see this. The labyrinth, there were maybe 3 of us who actually gathered the fronds, the seaweed fronds, and as Linda is carrying them, and they look like bones, so I refer to it as the bone labyrinth. And we just created it from the seed pattern that I had learned just that day at lunchtime. So it was just a beautiful community creation, and then other pilgrims in our group came down and we walked it together with the pounding surf behind, as you can see. So it was just an absolute thrill to be a part of that, and definitely a highlight of the week for me.
And for others also. There were those who did not help build it, but who came down and spent time walking it. And by the next day, it had been washed away.
Yes, and Linda King in the top right stayed with the labyrinth until it was washed away.
Yeah, just as a very special sacred time and moment and place for our experience there. There are others who have, other groups who have come and done the same thing. It's just a part of placing the mark of our presence on the shore, but knowing also that it can be washed away, but the experience is there for us. It was lovely. One of the other afternoon experiences that we will do is have a visit to the Isle of Staffa, best known probably by the many visitors throughout the last centuries and other centuries of going there. You have to travel by boat from Iona across the sea, which might be calm or might be rough, to this wonderful uninhabited isle, inhabited by puffins and natural fauna and flora that's there. It's wonderful. And again, if the sea is a little rough, we don't land. If the sea is calm, we land, and you can go up on the isle and see the beauty of it and talk with the puffins that are there. And on the right-hand side, you see a shot of Fingal's Cave. Staffa has been made famous by Mendelssohn's Overture, Fingal's Cave. And if the weather is right, we're able to ease into it by boat and be present with the wonderful acoustics that are present there. On the right, you see the small path that by foot you can travel from the top of Staffa, follow the path along the edge of the water, and actually enter the cave and sing your own tone and your own sound and hear the beautiful reverberations. And then the boat trip returning to Iona from Staffa enabled you to see the seashore of Mull, to just experience what it's like to be held in time and space, to a place that knows no human habitation. On one of the evenings, we'll actually experience a ceilidh at the town hall. Every week on Iona, there's a ceilidh, which is song and dance and comedy, and it was just great fun to be at the ceilidh with the group that came. We intermingled with folks from all over Scotland and England and danced to our heart's content and told story and joke. It's a great experience to share in this very traditional Scottish event. We'll be staying at the Argyle Hotel. The Argyle is right on the one street facing the entry, facing the jetty where we arrive. There are probably 80 persons who live permanently in Iona, and you see the road there, all the little buildings that are there. And the one right in the center with the white is the Argyle Hotel, where we will be staying. We'll be meeting there. We'll be having our meals there, and we'll be just sharing life there. And if you choose to go out and have a cup of tea, You can sit out in the front garden, and you can face the beauty of the water between Iona in the bottom and the Isle of Mull at the top, and you can share your afternoon tea or your high tea while looking out on this beautiful view. We've included the website for you to visit, and we have up on the website, we have the housing situation so that you can go there. You can go to our Veriditas website and you can look at the housing that's available for you. The Argyle is just a wonderful home-based hotel, still owned by local people, wanting to provide the best amenities, wanting to accommodate us as best we can. There are two beautiful lounges in which we'll meet in our small groups, and then there's a meeting room there. There are stairs there, and so for people who do not need to climb stairs, there are some B&Bs around that we can help you with if you let us know that you're needing maybe to find some other accommodation rather than climbing a flight of stairs. But the owners are just gracious and loving. The food is elegant and beautiful. In our time, the fireplaces are burning with the fires for us to warm ourselves up after afternoon walks. And so it's a lovely place to stay. Here you see our pilgrims from 2013, our own Iona pilgrims, the first pilgrimage to Iona. What a very, very special time it was. And Chris Faranoble, who is a part of that group, you see her in the middle row on the left end, was one of those pilgrims who came back and is now involved in working with logistics with this year's pilgrimage. And so I've invited Chris to talk for just a little bit, really truly telling some word about her experience at Iona, her experience in the pilgrimage, and anything else that she would like to share. Chris will be following up, providing more information about the logistics of getting there, and will be a small group leader while we are there. But for now, I invite you to hear a pilgrim sharing.
Thanks, Kay. This brings back so many memories. I wanted to just introduce one piece. When I first arrived, I had no coat, and at our hotel, I found a coat, a lost and found coat that belonged to one of the men of the island. So I wore this coat for the whole week, and I felt that it really embodied the spirit of the island. And I felt that I was part of the Fitzpatrick family, and we kept running into Fitzpatricks and learning about them, so that it's that kind of place where you can soak up whatever comes to you as you are there as a pilgrim. The free time in the afternoon, I particularly appreciated because it did give you a chance to just listen to your own heart, where you wanted to walk, where you wanted to journal. There are many places I want to go back to that I didn't spend enough time writing and photographing and listening. Another thing that I particularly enjoyed was I'm not an active person in a religious organization or community, but the Abbey just offered me so much community and a sense of community, so that the early morning prayer service for 20 minutes in the morning I went to a couple of times. It just started the day in a very non-sectarian, beautiful interfaith situation. On Tuesday we had a healing service, and we could offer people that needed the healing, and the words were repeated exactly that night with shared singing. And I've recreated that healing service here in Maine. It was just so beautiful. On Thursday I took part in the communion service, which I had not done for probably 30 or 40 years, and sang in the choir at the communion service, and sang Alleluia, and I just felt so a part of the inclusive Abbey worship. In addition, let me just have a look at my notes. I also just shared, I have a deep sense of history, so that there were opportunities to walk in the graveyards and to stand beside the crosses and go into some of the museums on the island and old churches and feel the nunnery feel the nunnery surround you. The dance that Kay showed us, the Pilgrims dance, was just beautiful, and people surrounded us while we were, or listened while we were singing and dancing. Once again, the Kaylee that she mentioned was in a small village hall where we also had a small labyrinth for a couple of days, and the Kaylee gave us a chance to just burst out in traditional Scottish songs and Scottish dances and dance with the local people. I was thrilled because I knew a lot of the songs and a lot of the dances, so that it was a real combining of my love of dancing and singing. So I think those are the primary things that I wanted to share. We already mentioned the labyrinth, but that was just a beautiful example of building something together and watching it go. And just one other thing, as far as the pilgrimage down to Columba Bay, we did help each other go slowly. We really took in the sheep and the grass and got lost and found ourselves and picked up these bone kelp pieces again. And you just felt very connected to the land. And it's very easy to forget that it's only a mile wide and 3 miles long. And I look forward to walking again and hiking and having that time, hopefully with some of you who are here with us tonight. But thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Chris, so much. It does bring back good memory, doesn't it? It makes us want to be back and to go again. And we hope that those of you who are listening will consider going with us. It's a very unique place, and touches one deeply and invites us to linger in that thin place, and then to find the thin places around us when we return home, because they are there to help us find ways to renew our spirit and our hearts and our beings, our bodies throughout. Here are some suggested readings. We are going to set up a website through Veriditas for the Iona trip, pilgrimage, and it will have these things listed there for you. Certainly these are not all your listings. I tried to give an overview of things you could choose from related to pilgrimage, related to thin places in Iona, related to transition and change, and so you see that those are there with some suggested readings for you at this point. Now, the next gives you some connections to pursue further more information. And again, this will be placed on our website so that you can go to it and really can get into the details. Now is not the time to do that, but that we can go that to you. I want to say one more word about how you get there so that I can clarify that. It does take a plane. You can fly into Edinburgh or Glasgow, whichever you choose. Again, as we do with the Chart pilgrimage, we do not make the arrangements for your travel. That is a part of the experience and the journey for you to do that, but we will help support you in that. So you get there by plane, then you take a train or bus to Oban, which is on the western shore of Scotland. You may spend a night there if you would like. That's a lovely experience to do, and one on the way back too. It takes 2 ferries to get there. One from Oban to the Isle of Mull, a 45-minute ferry, and then a 45-minute bus ride across the little Isle of Mull, 25 miles, but 45 minutes, with wonderful stories there about the journey itself. You arrive at a little village called Finnefort, and you take the last ferry. Now you can see Iona. Now you can see the Abbey. You can see the small island. And so you journey, if the seal is out, he may welcome you, but you journey by the little ferry across that small distance, and you arrive. You have come. So I would like to ask now if there are questions.
Yeah, Kay, we actually do have one. It's a question that says, is this pilgrimage designed for female participants?
May I clarify that question to the person? Do you mean female participants only? We don't limit it to female participants only, but it certainly is built around the sacred feminine. Iona itself is a holding place, a womb, And as far as physicality goes, you know, you could come and spend your whole time at the hotel and be enriched in or the hotel and the Abbey. There is walking involved, so that you do have to walk and move. There is a car from the hotel, which is actually right at the landing, but if you needed that transport. But for celebrating life together, gosh, it's a wonderful space for coming together in circle, for honoring our journeys, the diversity of our journeys. The last pilgrimage, we had one gentleman who came, and he was a wonderful addition to our experience. But I think we take who comes and we shape it. It's not just for women. It's for anybody who wants to pilgrim. It's for anybody who wants to journey to a thin place. So both in the Iona community, in the travels to Iona, both men and women come, and then I think we shape it as you want, as what your needs are. And again, because my experience has been that on pilgrimage, often small groups circle themselves to share their experiences and to go forward. So hopefully that answers your question, but feel free to send another question for me to clarify.
Yeah, there are a couple others. One came in about finding the information on our website, so I'll address that briefly.
Okay.
We are planning on creating an Iona pilgrimage page on our website. I would say look for that in about a week or so. And we're planning to have all kinds of good information on that webpage. So if you can bear with us for a little while we get that up. And we'll also do a Facebook page, like Kay said. So that is going to be in the coming soon category. And in the meantime, the basic information is in the event listing on our website. And then we have some other questions.
Okay.
One is, do you have the dates for the pilgrimage?
Yes, it's the 23rd through the 28th of August. And following that, we close out with the pilgrimage on the 28th. And then we are offering for the first time ever a facilitated training at Iona on the 29th and 30th. And then people who stay for that, or people who stay to just continue to have a couple of free days there, we will head home on the 31st. So again, August 23rd through the 28th is the pilgrimage. 29th and 30th is the facilitator training, and my goodness, we hope we have a good response to that, to have that experience of being trained at Iona. And then the 31st is departure date. You could vary that. You could leave on the 29th and travel elsewhere. I know that many people want to travel other places in Scotland and Ireland while you're over there. So, you know, you're welcome and free to do that. Again, our time is 23rd through the 28th, with 29th and 30th being facilitator training, and departure on the 31st. As you know, as you can tell, Iona is a place of my heart. It goes back deep in my own personal story. It connects me with my Scottish-Irish roots. The pattern and rhythm that is there touched my own heart. I've been there many times. I've been a part of the Iona community, and I would love to open this up to your experience and to let you be there and be a part of it. So feel free to be in touch with us. So I'm going to ask the question again. How do you get to Iona? To get to Iona, it takes me the underground, 3 trains, a coach, 2 ferries, and a fair bit of walking.
To get to Iona, it takes me sandwiches, coffee, sweets, a bottle of water, and sometimes on the boat, an egg and bacon butty.
To get to Iona, it takes me timetables, the Guardian Quick Crossroad, a book, a pen, paper, and whatever magazines people leave behind them on the trains.
To get to Iona, it takes me smiles, conversations, laughter, listening, memories, and often tears.
To get to Iona, it takes me risks, prayers, work, wonder, minutes and days, and the passing of years. That's what it takes to get me to Iona. What will it take you? May we travel on the journey together in peace and joy. May it be so.